What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Fit to Fat to Fit Experience podcast. I'm your host, Drew Manning.
And I'm your co-host, Lynn Manning. And today...
Oh, you're going to go ahead? Okay.
I'm going to be leading
Lynn's
today,
leading this one,
so
guys.
I'm taking control. Today, you guys, you are in for a special treat on this podcast, as I will be interviewing Drew Allen Kaipo Manning.
Do me a favor, you guys, and just tune out now. You can go ahead and skip to the end. Don't listen to this episode.
He's nervous. So if you have been with us the last couple of weeks, and if you haven't, then I'll put this in the show notes. But if you've been with us the last couple of weeks, we actually 2 weeks ago opened up a little bit more about our divorce, talked about what we went through, a little bit more details, and then most importantly, the transition post-divorce, how we've been able to maintain a relationship, especially for our kids. And we gave a few tips in there for people that are transitioning or have gone through divorce that are wondering how they can improve that. And then last week, Drew interviewed me, and he asked me some pretty personal questions. Some of them were funny. I appreciated those. And I can't believe I shared that story about pooping my pants. Anyways, it's fine. It's totally fine. So what we're doing... If
any of you guys know Brene Brown, this is all her fault. Tell her that this is all happening because of her.
Also tell her she should come on our podcast. Okay, great. Thank you. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to actually jump in and interview Drew, asking some questions so that you guys can learn a little bit about him. I'm actually not going to ask him at all about Fit to Fat to Fit. If you've been listening to the podcast and been following for years, you know all about Fit to Fat to Fit, the experiences, the lessons, what he learned. I really want to get to know the core of Drew and who he is, let you guys kind of see a little bit of a background of what I know about him and get to know him on that level. What we decided to do for these podcasts, just like last week, he doesn't know any of the questions that he's going to be asked, and he's going to answer all of them anyway. So you're going to really get to see a spontaneous, vulnerable look at who is Drew. So we'll go ahead and get right into it after we talk about our show sponsors. Go ahead, Drew.
Yeah, so our first show sponsor is Ketogenic. Now, you guys have heard me talk about Ketogenic for quite a while now. I'm a big fan of these exogenous ketones. So what exactly are exogenous ketones? So these are bioidentical to the same ketones that your body produces when there's no glucose. Why can I say that? Glucose available. So basically that's what happens when you're in a state of ketosis. There's no glucose, very little glucose present in your body for energy. So your body is forced to produce ketones for an energy source. And when you're in ketosis, you guys, your body can tap into its stored fat for fuel. And I've said this before, you can store around maybe upwards of 20 to 30,000 calories of stored fat in your body that your body can tap into if there's no glucose available. You can only store up to 2,000 to 3,000 calories maybe at a time of glucose before you have to replenish it. So you can see how your body can run more efficiently off of ketones versus glucose. And so I'm a big fan of the ketogenic diet now, not just for weight loss or fat loss purposes, but it's literally nutrition for your brain, right? There's so many benefits of being in a state of ketosis other than just losing weight. There's a lot of neuroprotective benefits for your brain. Cognitive function is improved, memory, focus, longer lasting energy. I like that I only have to eat pretty much 2 meals a day, you guys. I'm not starving and every 3 hours need to replenish those glycogen stores every 3 hours, right? That's what I like about the ketogenic diet is, I eat 2 big meals a day. It's a lot of fat. But the cool thing about ketogenics, you guys, is that it's a way for you to hack into ketosis within 60 minutes of taking it versus nutritionally, it's going to take you a few days to get into a state of ketosis eating a high-fat, moderate protein, low-carb diet. Ketogenics will allow you to get into ketosis within 60 minutes. You can even test your blood ketone levels, you guys, to prove that it's actually working. And it's just a more convenient way of getting into a state of ketosis. Now, whether you follow a ketogenic diet or not, there's still neuroprotective benefits of taking ketogenics. If you listen to my podcast episode with Dr. Dom D'Agostino, we go into the specifics of what these exogenous ketones can do for you and what kind of scientific studies he's doing to show the benefits of taking exogenous ketones, whether you follow the keto diet or not. Obviously, I recommend people experimenting and trying it out for themselves to see if the keto diet is something for them, but also experimenting with ketogenics, taking it maybe before a workout or before a long day at the office or before a presentation. That's when I like to take it, is before a workout, or if I have podcasts that I have to do all day, I'll take it before I do my podcast. So check it out. If you go to ketogenics.com, they have a discount code FIT2FAT2FIT. Enter that in at checkout, and you'll receive a 15% discount. They try all 3 flavors: orange, wild berry, or fruit punch. They all taste good, I promise. And definitely it's worth something experimenting with.
Yeah, and our other show sponsor is Quest Nutrition. You can go into the notes to get their link or go to questnutrition.com. You guys, I've been using their products for years. As you guys know, I love their Quest bars. I also love their Quest chips. For me, and I talk about it every time I promote them, it's great, of course, to eat whole foods. And when I'm at home, that's what I do. But when I'm on the go, I always have a Quest bar with me. It helps because it's high in protein, it's low in net carbs, it's high in fiber. It's a great alternative to eating out or eating junk food as you're on the go and you end up getting hangry, which I know happens to us moms. We end up running our kids a million places, and then the next thing we know, we're all starving or our kids are starving. My kids love them. I keep extra in my purse, in my glove box, at the office, just so that no matter where I'm at, if something comes up and I'm hungry and I don't have a meal prepared for me, a healthier meal, I always reach for a Quest bar. And again, their Quest chips are also really delicious. I actually take those. I had a picnic actually just last week with my kids and some friends, and since all the kids, of course, eat those the junk food chips, which I know my kids eat from time to time too, but I don't want to give them to them all the time. So especially in the summer months, I'll pack a healthy sandwich and I will bring Quest chips on the go. So check it out. All right, you guys.
Okay, remember, this is where you can tune out, you guys. Change the channel.
All right, you guys, here we go. So we're going to go ahead and dive into this interview with Drew, asking him a bit of some personal questions about himself. And I'm actually going to be following a similar format to what he had lined up for me last week, as far as with some of the questions. And I do want to go ahead and start, and I want you to tell people a little bit about your childhood, growing up, how many siblings you had, what it was like, maybe even from a religious standpoint, what it was like growing up in your family.
Yeah. Okay. So really quick, I grew up in a family of 11 brothers and sisters. My parents, I don't know how they did it. I guess I would call them crazy because I have 2 kids and it's hard enough with 2. I don't know how my parents did it. They had 1 kid at a time, so no twins or anything like that. It's all from the same mom and dad. Pretty much every 2 years, my mom popped out a new kid. So pretty much, I think the oldest in our family is 45. The youngest is 21, 22. So you can see 20 plus years of having kids. I was the 7th kid. There's 8 boys and 3 girls. And it was very, very interesting growing up in a family of 11. I grew up in San Diego, California until I was about 13. Then I moved to Northern Virginia. And it was definitely very interesting growing up with a family of 11 siblings. We obviously all played sports. We were all active. Even though we had a lot of kids, I wouldn't say we were very close. We didn't talk about emotions. We didn't talk about personal things. We kind of didn't know how to communicate about that kind of stuff, which is good and bad, right? There's good and bad things from that. But yeah, I grew up Mormon, pretty strict. And we all did, we're all raised in the Mormon church, or the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is what it's called. But I grew up, very conservative, and I played sports growing up. I played football and wrestling, and learned a lot of things about discipline growing up from sports, from my parents, from my brothers and sisters, and had a very tough love type of childhood, I guess you could say. Really wasn't shown a ton of sympathy or compassion when it came to certain things that if I cried or whatever. But anyways, I feel for the most part, my childhood was a positive one. Definitely a lot of good things and bad things, but that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. When I first started dating you and you told me how many people are in your family, I remember one of my first thoughts was, I am never going to remember all of these people's names. This is never going to work.
And now you do.
I actually do. I know everyone's names. I know their kids' names, which when you have that many siblings and that many kids, yes. I'm shocked. My memory's not the greatest. Okay, so next question.
Okay.
This is the only time I'm actually even going to really talk about fitness. But what made you decide to get into fitness, or what got you to where you were at deciding to be a trainer?
I think it was because it all started watching my older brothers play football. My brother, Eric, who might listen to this episode, he's a big podcast listener. He might listen to this episode. I remember him playing high school football, and I remember all of his buddies, him and the people on the varsity team were these buff guys. And I'm like, man, I want to be like that. And so ever since I was a little kid, we had some weights downstairs that I remember him and his friends would work out with. And so I just started that from a young age, wanted to look like them, wanted to be buff. I was playing football, and I looked up to them and him. Inspired me to want to be a good athlete. So I always was into exercise. Nutrition, not so much, because actually, when you're cooking for 11 kids, I mean, we didn't have a lot of money. We weren't rich, we weren't poor, but we always had food. My mom had to cook, breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 11 kids every single day, right? And I don't know how she did it, but we didn't have the healthiest foods. But I remember growing up, we didn't really have box cereal. We didn't have Gushers and Capri Suns and Oreos in our cupboards. It was all just homemade food that my mom made from scratch for the most part. So we had a lot of lentil soups and casseroles, whatever it took to feed 11 mouths,
Yeah, those casseroles are actually pretty good.
Yeah. So it was poor man's food. So I wouldn't say I grew up really healthy, but at the same time probably stayed away from a lot of highly processed things. But we had powdered milk and other things like that we grew
powdered
up on.
Milk.
Yes. I remember my mom would actually, she won't listen to this, but she would actually try and trick us by putting powdered milk in real milk cartons to make it trick us. Be like, oh, it's real milk. We could totally taste the difference. Be like, Mom, this is powdered milk. What are you doing? And she's like, sorry, that's all we have this week. So I complained a lot as a kid. I was kind of probably a brat growing up. All my friends had the Gushers and the Oreos in their lunch, and I had
that's what I had
white
in my
bread,
lunch.
peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, 2 or 3 of those. And I was so embarrassed as a kid growing up. I'm like, man, I just want the school lunch with the pizza, and the fries. I was so embarrassed to bring a brown bag to lunch to school.
Oh, I was laughing because his family has a private Facebook group just for the family members, and on it the other day his brother posted this picture, and it had 4 white pieces of white bread, and it was growing up poor, and it shows for sandwiches, for hot dogs, for
hamburger buns,
for
garlic bread,
for garlic bread, pretty much it's all the same piece of white bread.
Hey, you gotta get creative.
I love it.
Yeah, we would use it as hamburger buns, hot dog buns. Garlic bread was all just made on white pieces of white bread.
I love it. I love it.
Anyways, it was very unique childhood.
I love it. Okay, so going to a little bit of a serious question. Dun, dun, dun. No, and you don't need to go into specifics, but I know you've had a couple big obstacles in your life, some struggles that you've had, and I wanted to know what are some of the greatest lessons that you've learned from going through such hardship and struggles, whether it's something that you've learned that helps you overcome them, or some practices that you've put in place, or just life lessons in general. What are some big lessons that you've learned from hardship?
Without getting into specifics?
Well, you can get into specifics if you want.
Okay.
This episode, it's up to you.
This might be a long episode if I do that, though.
Yeah, it's up to you.
I might save that one for another episode, actually. But basically, as you guys know, Lynn and I have been divorced for over a year now. We talked about that 2 weeks ago on our podcast. We didn't really get into why. And, I have grown so much over the past 2 years, more so than the first 3 years of my life. It's been quite a ride, and I wish I would have learned these lessons earlier in life, because I think it would have saved me and even Lynn a lot of heartache and stress. I had a very tough time learning to love who I was. Like I said, I grew up with a lot of discipline, a very black-white mentality. You're either A+ student or you're a failure, right? That's kind of my perception of how I was raised. I was never good enough. I was never, it felt like I had to be perfect all the time, and I wasn't. And because of that, on the inside, I hated who I was my entire life. Even though Lynn probably wouldn't even, have noticed that, because I acted like I was confident somewhat on the outside. On the inside, I was not confident. And I think some people who maybe knew me really well could tell that, but other people couldn't. But I struggled with that my entire life. I never knew how to love myself. I always thought my motivation was to beat myself up more, and that would cause me to be a better person. And oh, how I was wrong. I definitely had to fall flat on my face, you guys. Hit rock bottom. And this was like around the time when Lynn and I had struggled in our marriage. I hit rock bottom. I kind of lost my identity, didn't know who I was. And I hated who I was. I literally hated who I was on the inside. And I had no outlet. I had no way of expressing that or talking to Lynn about it or anybody. I kept all my issues, my weaknesses on the inside. And I just figured, well, if I don't talk about it, it'll just work itself out one day. And it doesn't work that way. It doesn't. Everything came out in the open eventually, and not the way I wanted it to. And certain parts about me that I would have liked to keep private were exposed, but it had to happen. Everything in my past had to happen, and it happened for a reason. And it wasn't until I met the life coach, Catherine Dixon from Clarity Coaching, that brought that out in me and finally learned how to love myself despite my weaknesses of my past and the mistakes that I made in my past, because I felt like I never was deserving of love. Like I just, figured, oh, I'll just suffer. I deserve to suffer. And that's what that's what I grew up with, and caused a lot of issues in our marriage because of that.
And everybody is deserving of love, you guys.
Yeah.
Everyone. I know that this would be controversial, but I just want to say, no matter where you're at, no matter what mistakes you've made, no matter what hardships you've gone through, I've made mistakes in my life, especially in my youth, a lot. And it's never going to help for you to dwell and beat yourself up and hold yourself in that space, that's who you are. All you are is your mistakes. All you are your weaknesses. All you are your sins. If you're religious, that's how they see it. Sometimes people say it. And you're not. You're so much more than that. And if we all only focused on our weaknesses, how sad would this world be? You need to sometimes just give yourself some grace and realize we all struggle and we make mistakes. And so one of your greatest lessons then, Drew, was realizing that you could love yourself regardless.
Yes, that I didn't need to be defined by my past. And that was the problem, I think, was even though I grew up religious, the guilt and the shame that came with things that I did that I knew I wasn't supposed to do, I let myself define myself by those mistakes, and that's all I was ever going to be, was those mistakes that I made in the past. And I'm not really religious anymore. Kind of taken a step away from the guilt and the shame that comes with it, and I'm kind of exploring myself or reinventing myself and discovering, what makes me happy. And once I learned how to love myself, my life has been so much better. And I've learned how to be vulnerable, because that was my issue, was I didn't know how to be vulnerable. I figured that wasn't what a man was supposed to be. And until I learned that, it's made such a difference in my life. So 1 is love myself. 2 is to learn how to be vulnerable, own your story, and not care what other people think. And the reason I don't share my personal story of specifics of like what we went through and why we got divorced is it is my story, and I do own it. It's just I feel like there's a time and place for it, and maybe one of these days I'll be able to share it completely. But I just feel like for right now, it's not something that we'll talk about for now.
Yeah, I'm willing to be honest and fair. Our life stories are personal, and you share them with and whom you have that openness, that trust, and that space, like you said, that open space for it. And so I don't think it's necessarily needs to be shared. I think what's more important is the lessons that we learn about ourselves through trials and how we can kind of share with others the amount of growth and learning. And I think especially like in your case, Drew, it's hard from an outsider's perspective. Like it was hard for me to see how much you didn't love yourself. And we've kind of talked about this a little bit, I think, in the last episode. But, when you were talking about you can't have your happiness be dependent on someone else's happiness. For me, I realized I could never have loved you enough to make you be a certain way or love yourself. Like you can't make someone else love them. And the more you love that person isn't going to make them love themselves more. It only comes from within. Someone's only going to love themselves if they put in the self-care and the self-worth and work on their self-confidence. You can't do that for them. You can praise them all you want or talk about how great they are, or, it's not about you. It's about them and it's their journey. And don't put that weight on yourself thinking, well, if only I change or love them a little bit more. You have to realize, that's for them and their journey and process, and they'll work on it and go through it in their own time. Yeah. So next question, a little bit more lighthearted. You are such an amazing dad. And that's one thing that I always talk to people about. It's interesting whenever they, you get the crazy, like, ooh, your ex, you work with your ex, or crazy things about your ex. And one of the things that I always say is, even though there are especially a few really, really, really hard years that I sometimes wish I could erase from my memory, I'm like, you know what, though? Like, when I really, even now looking back, I'm like, I would do it all again. And he is the greatest dad. Like, if you are going to be having children with someone that you're now not married to, like, if you have somebody that's an amazing dad, you lucked out. And not every dad, gives their kids the time and energy that Drew gives our kids. He's such a good father. And I wanted you to share maybe a little bit of what has helped you be such a good dad, or what are some of the things that you try to implement with our girls to make sure that they know they're loved and help with their self-love and their confidence.
Yeah. I kind of want to be careful how I say this. Because I definitely don't want to offend anyone, but I feel like, we only have our experiences in life, and we can draw from those experiences. That's kind of how we're shaped and molded, is through our past experiences. And I feel like, I might not agree with a lot of things or the way I was raised by my parents, even though I love them and they're great and I learned so many things from them. There's a lot of things that I don't want to be in my life, and that's come from them. And I feel like I want to be, for my girls, better in some ways. Like I definitely don't want to be certain characteristics that maybe my parents were, and that's not knocking them or, saying, I'm disappointed in them. It's just, for me, it shaped me and molded me into wanting to be the best dad possible. And one of the things that helped me was when we were pregnant with Kalea. Someone recommended this book to me when they found out I was having a daughter, called Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters. And I don't remember the name of the author, but just Google it. And it changed my perspective on the importance of a father in a daughter's life. And I kind of saw what happens, when there's not that special relationship there. Girls are so different than boys. And when they're raised with a dad so for example, I believe a daughter learns how to love from her mom, but she learns how to be loved from her dad, and I feel like that helped me to realize that I need to have a special relationship with my daughters where I show them love and tell them I love them and give them hugs and kisses and praise them and tell them that they're beautiful. You can't say that enough to your daughters, because I think they need that, especially in a world that kind of tears them down and challenges their self-esteem and their confidence. So many girls grow up with self-esteem issues and confidence issues, and I see it in my family firsthand. With my sisters and even me, I grew up with like low self-esteem and low confidence. But for girls, it's totally different. So for me, it just made me want to be the best dad possible to my daughters, and understanding the importance of this role. And yeah, I might have not been the perfect husband, I tried, but it is what it is, right? We're divorced now. I wouldn't say like I was a failure by any means, but I know that in my life, I have the chance to be the best dad possible. And if I fail at everything else, if I fail at business, if I fail at other relationships, if I can look back at my life and say I was a successful dad, I was a good dad, I will, rest easy at night, knowing that was my mission in life.
And I love that. I love that you put our girls first and everything. And I love that together. And I think that's why we are able to work together and co-parent well together, is that we both do that. We both know that our girls self-esteem and self-worth and everything is number one. For any parents out there like wondering a good place to start, one of the things that I love to do is every night before bed I read my children the Parenting Manifesto by Brene Brown. If you just want to Google it, you can find tons of copies. And I like to read that with my kids. And of course, they're young, so I break it down and I explain, like, when it says that we'll be open and vulnerable, what does vulnerable mean again? And they'll be like, it means we share our emotions. And it talks about how, as a family, like, you'll love each other no matter what, that you'll open up, that you'll share the good and the bad, that there's always a place for you no matter what. And one of the things that I love about Drew and I that we're very consistent on is parenting is for our kids to know that we all make mistakes, that we don't expect perfection out of them, that we want them to try and to be kind, of course, and loving, but that we make mistakes. And I apologize to my kids all the time. I'll be like, mommy made a mistake, or mommy got mad and she shouldn't have yelled. Or, I think a lot of times as parents, we think, oh, well, we need to, we're the authority, so we shouldn't say we're sorry. And I think that's a huge mistake. I think that showing your children that everyone makes mistakes and being vulnerable about that and apologizing and just being loving is one of the best approaches. And my kids, as far as their behavior and stuff is actually, I think, even better because of that, because they're more open and they're willing to tell me when they've made mistakes. So yeah, Drew does such a good job at loving our daughters and making sure that they see their self-worth. So I love those tips. Okay, Drew.
Yes, I'm here.
An interesting talent or ability or thing about you that people don't know.
An interesting talent or ability.
Or experience, something that people might find unique about you that they don't know. Like they'd be like, what? I would never have expected that. Drew's a really good ballet dancer. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
No, I wish I was. Then I could say that, but I can't say that. Let's see here. Maybe you have some ideas here, but one thing that pops into my mind was, and I don't know if I told you this, in Hawaii, I was feeling spontaneous, and I was invited to go to a hip hop dance class. And
I saw the video.
You saw the video?
You showed it to me.
Oh,
you forget.
Shoot. Okay, I forgot.
No, but it's awesome.
But I did, because I'm like, you know what? Life's too short. Like, I don't dance like a lot. Like, Lynn knows that. I'm not a big dancer. I'll bob my head a little bit and do the side step,
He'll shake his hips a tiny bit, like side to side a little bit.
Yeah, but, so I kind of went out of my comfort zone. I went to a hip-hop class. It was me and 3 other girls. That's all. And it was just really awkward. But I was told I did actually pretty good, even by Sean T., who is a good friend from, he's from Insanity.
Now, Sean T's moves.
Now, Sean T can dance, right? And I showed him,
dance.
If he said I did good, then hopefully he meant that. But I don't know. I just went to one class, but I'm trying to think what else, unless you have any. I don't have any cool abilities.
I don't have any amazing abilities. I was just thinking anything new for people that they maybe didn't know about you. But I mean, I think we're going to get into something more entertaining and that's similar to that and more of the lightning round.
If I think of some, she prepared lightning round questions.
Well, no, that's a little bit. Okay.
If something else comes to my mind, I'll mention it.
How about this one? What goals or dreams do you have that probably no one knows about? Maybe something you've thought about, like you really want to accomplish this or do this, or where you maybe want to be in a few years that you haven't really shared.
That's another tough question. Because I've learned to live in the moment, and I haven't really prepared for the future. But I kind of have had some thoughts and some ideas, and it has to do, I can't get into specifics because it has to do with my story. But it does have to do with being a single dad and opening up and writing a book about my journey and what other people can learn from it.
Wow. Really?
And it's being totally open, 100% transparent, sharing everything.
Whoa.
And I haven't set a goal, deal. Like here's the date it's going to happen, but it's just been in the back of my mind because I feel like there's a lot of people that have gone through this, and I feel like it's not talked about.
Wow.
Hardly at all.
Wow.
And I feel like a lot of people can maybe benefit from it. So, but obviously I'm a little bit nervous and scared to talk about it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That would be huge.
Anyways.
That's kind of amazing. I wasn't expecting that answer. See what happens when we don't
What
talk
were you
about what we're
expecting?
gonna. I don't know. I thought you were gonna
I
say
wanna
something
work out
like.
really hard.
I thought you were gonna say something like, "I'm gonna go hike Mount Everest" or something fitness related, physical related. But that was emotional related.
Gotcha.
Okay, so let's finish up with a few fun light questions. Fast loading light questions. Most embarrassing moment.
Oh, shoot. Why did you have to ask this?
'Cause I had to.
Okay, there's two.
Good. Let's share both.
One was, oh shoot, okay. I won't mention names here, but back in high school, I had this girlfriend. She probably won't be listening to this. And I was very self-conscious back then. And I remember one time she was massaging me, and like I went to scoot forward with her. She was sitting on my back, right? So there was pressure being pushed down.
Yeah.
And she's like, can you scoot forward some? Because we're kind of off the edge of the bed. And so I'm like, oh, sure. And I did. And as I went to scoot forward, I totally farted. And I didn't say anything because I was like, oh my gosh, that really just happened? And she didn't say anything. But I knew that, like, I was like, okay, you were sitting right on my butt. So I was like, I didn't say anything. She didn't say anything. I was like, how's the weather outside? It's really cold. We just totally changed the subject, and it was totally awkward.
Oh, I'm loving this. I'm loving this.
And
number
two was, and you're gonna laugh at this. So I went on this TV show called The View, which I don't watch, but I know there's a lot of women on it. And I went to, like, I don't know. I was in Hollywood, and I knew that people, like, you know, they kiss them on the cheek when you meet them. So I decided on live TV. Now, The View is live. It's not recorded. But I went, and all the women, there was 5 women on the show. I, like, you know, they, like, introduced me, Drew Manning, and I come out and wave into the crowd. I'm, like, feeling good, and I go and shake everybody's hand, but then I pull myself in for a side kiss, you know, / hug. Cheek. And did it to every single one, and it was just really awkward by the end. Like Barbara Walters and I think what's the redhead, Joy Behar, were like, "What are you doing?" Like, yeah, they shook my hand, but then they kind of pulled away as I went to kiss them on the side of the cheek. Anyways,
and it was like noticeably. The reason why this is funny is because I told him not to do it. I said, they don't know you, don't kiss their cheek. And you're like, well, I'm going to see. And the woman that came out before was Joe Biden's wife. And so she kissed them each on the cheek. And they, of course, were cool with that because they're women. Yeah. And she's a woman and they kind of know her. But then it was funny because like you could see the apparent awkwardness.
It was just awkward.
Like they were like,
it was bad. And luckily you can't find it on YouTube, I don't think. Unless someone has it. If you do
I hope someone has it and can find it and share it. It's pretty good. Okay. Worst date. Or awkward moment on a date.
Here's the thing. I have not actually been on a lot of dates, even my entire life. I haven't like gone out and dated girls. I can't think of one.
You've been on dates. Come on.
I haven't had like a bad date though. I can't remember one.
So maybe you just don't have a bad date. I was going to say you've been on several dates in the last little while.
I have.
Well, I mean, in Hawaii. So
my gosh.
I mean, they're not.
I haven't. But I don't really recall anything like weird or awkward happening that I know of. Now, if you ask the girl, maybe
she probably has.
She might have a story, but
dang it, all women have good awkward date stories. I'm disappointed.
I don't. I mean, I'm very easy to get along with, and even if there's an awkward moment, like I make it not awkward for them.
Okay, good. Aside from if you fart and they fart and then no one says anything.
No, I'm still self-conscious about that, and I don't do that in front of women. So.
Okay. Let's see. Most feminine. So this kind of goes back to your interesting talent thing. You know, most feminine thing you do that people wouldn't know.
Here's the thing, and you're gonna make fun of me because of this because you've been married to me for a long time. It's called manscaping, so it's not feminine, but a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, dude, you shave your arm, you shave your body. I shave all my body hair except for my face and my head. I don't like body hair. And so I use I think it's Philips Norelco, like body groomer, and it's like $30 at Walmart. And I spend like 45 minutes a week on average body grooming my entire body. Mm-hmm. And it takes a long time. Lynn knows, and it's a mess to clean up.
It's a disaster.
It's a
clean
disaster.
Up. I don't miss that.
She doesn't miss that. That's why she divorced me, actually.
I do not miss it. If people want to know, people are like, why'd you guys, I'm just going to start saying because he manscaped. I'm just kidding. You guys know we like to
but it's called
light.
manscaping, so I don't know if it's considered feminine, but...
I was thinking more of like you blow drying your hair and stuff. But I mean, there was
hey,
many
at least I have
from.
hair. I'm proud to have hair, so I'm going to take care of it, okay? I use product in my hair. I get it cut, and the blow drying of the hair makes it look thicker. So
yes.
I'm self-conscious about going bald because all my brothers are bald. You guys don't tell them that, but they're all bald. Except for me.
Don't tell them. They'll never know. Okay. Celebrity crush.
What's her name?
Tell me the movie. I might know. I probably not, though. I'm really bad at celebrity names.
No, I'm trying to think. Here's the thing. Ever since I was little, Michelle Pfeiffer's been my go-to girl. Like, ever since I was little, even now, she's like hasn't aged in 50 years. I've always had a crush on Michelle Pfeiffer.
Oh, Michelle Pfeiffer. She's a good one.
Yeah, man. She's classic. She's ageless, right? Is that the right term? Like, she's just classic. Like, she's always beautiful.
Yeah,
in all
I
of her
agree.
Movies,
I agree.
Yeah, she's my go-to one.
Okay, good one. Okay, that was it. You survived.
All right, we're done.
You wrapped it up.
Okay.
That's
Those
all
are
I
the
had for you.
questions.
That's
Okay,
all I had
cool.
for you. I didn't think it was that bad. I mean, I followed similar to your thing, but I didn't include anything about like, why'd you marry me? Or what's like the most annoying thing I do? Because let's be honest, I don't want to know that.
Well, let me tell you. Let me go down the list.
No.
Just kidding.
Just kidding. Now you can wrap it up with any tidbits of information or inspiration that
here's
you
the thing,
want
you
to
guys.
give to.
I am who I am. Some of my positive affirmations that I tell myself every day when I look in the mirror is I say, you're a good man. You're a good father. You're happy. You're kind. You're blessed. You're grateful. You're healthy. You're strong. And you're happy. And I look at myself and tell myself those things every day, and they've made a big difference in my life. Daily meditation as well. I actually like who I am now for the first time. And I'm not trying to sound cocky or like confident, or, I am confident, a lot more confident now than I used to be, but genuinely, like, it's so interesting how life is so much better when you like who you are. And you don't care about what other people think. I mean, for the most part, obviously being in the public eye, it's different because you can't just be a jerk or just, do whatever you want to. But I definitely worry a lot less about what other people think of me. It's just this past 2 years that people ask me, are you happier now versus when you were married? And I say, honestly, I am happier now. And I know Lynn's happier now. And we're in a good place emotionally and spiritually. And it's weird how, even though, in other people's perspectives and their outside opinions, they're like, oh, well, you can't be happy because you're not doing this, this, and this, but I am. And I know Lynn is. And I still have my hard days. I'm not perfect by any means. I'm still learning. I'm still growing. And that's what's beautiful about this is there's a lot of things that I don't know. And I'm okay with that. But one thing I do know is that I love being a dad, and that's my main mission in life. Whether I fail at everything else, that's one thing I know I can be successful at. That's one thing I know I'm good at. But in the meantime, I do enjoy what I do with Fit to Fit, and I had no idea any of this would happen, but I feel grateful and blessed to be where I'm at today, and I promise you guys to give my full self to helping as many people as possible. Not just lose weight, because I hate that. It's so superficial, It's like anybody can give you a meal plan or a workout plan, but it's, I think my approach is different now that I've been through what I've been through with Fit to Fit, and with my new perspective on life, I guess you can say. And so I hope you guys enjoy this. I hope you guys find value in what Lynn and I bring to the table. So thanks for having me on my podcast. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah,
you guys, I hope that you guys realize that it may be a little different, because you may think, how does some of these episodes have to do with fitness? And our approach really is an overall synergy in your life of spirituality, mental health, emotional health, physical health. We don't want to just feed you nutrition nutrition information or tell you about all the latest diet trends, which sometimes we will talk about those, but we want to talk about other things that are real and in our lives and how we can improve that. So hopefully you guys enjoyed those questions about Drew, getting to know a little bit more about who he is, not fitness related, because that's just such a small component about who he is. And yeah, we'll have some goodies in store for you guys next week. Now, if you want to continue to follow us or get more information about us, you guys can find more information on our websites. Mine is the number 2 fitathome.com. And my social media handles are the number 2 fitathome on both Instagram and on Facebook. On my website, there's a little section where you can actually put in your email if you want to join my free newsletter. And that's where I'll share like some recipes, some health and wellness tips, some self-love tips, as well as I announce if I ever have any new programs or events coming up. So you can check me out there.
Yep. Thank you guys once again for tuning in. All my social media handles are at fit2fat2fit with a number 2, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and my website's fit2fat2fit.com. Sign up for my newsletter there, you guys. Definitely delivering a lot of great content and information, knowledge for you guys, and to stay in the know as far as like upcoming events and the TV show. A lot of big things coming, you guys. We appreciate your support. We wouldn't be able to do this without you guys, so thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe to us on iTunes. Leave us a review, please. It helps our ratings, and share it with a friend. We appreciate you guys, and we'll see you guys back here for another great episode on the Fit to Fat to Fit Experience podcast.
See you guys.